one of the things about this deck is you can do a lot of stuff, but a note that Pocket made during the qualifiers was you kind of have to think about which direction you're going with the deck and start setting that up.
That's the thing that's really challenging about this deck, is that there's no one clear win con. It is very choose your own adventure.
Yeah, I think an easy mistake when looking at like the lists and things is to say, oh, this is a combo deck. I'm supposed to get deal 3 damage from Mixologist and deal 6 from Grifta, and that's how we win. And it's like, well, that's sometimes how you win, but not always. And welcome to episode 524 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, November 20th, 2025 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergan, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From Northrend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, May, NY Kiwi, Spine, and Grizzly Bear, and by our patrons of the week, Jamie Smallish and Jay Schuster. You can go to patreon.com/CoinConcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, bonus post-show content, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder. I did a bunch of like prep for casting the Last Chance tournament, and then have not been super enthused since.
I mean, that is kind of like a binge of Hearthstone, so it's fair for you to kind of have to go do anything else after playing that much Hearthstone to prep for a tournament like that.
I had hope, because
that was your first mistake.
One of the players, the Japanese player, had Arcane Mage. And I cannot play that on ladder. It is just not a ladder equipped deck, I don't think. Like you can do some crazy things, and I feel like knowing its ins and outs, it's not like you have to win with the Oathstone or with, a combo. It's sort of like you do a pop-off turn, and then a lot of decks actually can't remove the board, and then you keep going. But you do like need the pop-off turn to not die. And if you don't get it in time, then you die. So would love for that deck to be made better. I don't quite know the answer. I don't know if it's like just make all the dragons 4-mana 2/6s or something. But yeah. And then there was a lot of Discover Hunter in the tournament, which is going to be the Decksplanations later. Played some Cycle Rogue. Played...
Oof.
I have not played the Shaman because the sheer quantity of Shaman that I have faced most of the time on ladder has been nauseating. That I don't wish to play mirrors, and there are just so many. I feel like what I classically sort of felt the best about playing, you know what it is? I can't play Discover Hunter on my iPad. We'll get to that.
Yeah,
we'll get to why.
okay.
But but I could play a Death Knight. So I sort of end up in this weird loop where it's like, well, as long as I am facing the shamans and the aggressive warriors, then I can do well with control things. But then I randomly hit a Protoss mage, and it's like, well, I'm not running Dirty Rat, so I guess I'm dead.
Yeah, even though the Protoss mage has not really been putting up good stats, it's been floating around enough to catch you out. I had like not seen any, and then I lost to 2 in a row. And then I was like, why is there Protoss Mage still?
It's
but like
Protoss Mage and Protoss Priest, it's just like, okay, well, we nerfed everything else, and the new stuff isn't... Like, the idea of nerfing the old stuff is that the new stuff's supposed to shine, but the new stuff isn't necessarily
The
there.
best stuff.
Well, no, I mean, not even the quest stuff, but just like the stuff from the new set isn't there enough. So then you get different old decks instead, which is kind of telling you where the power level the current stuff is.
I said the new stuff is not necessarily the best stuff.
Oh, best stuff. I think you said quest stuff. Yeah.
No. We they said explicitly that they gave up on quests.
If there was quests that were taking over the meta, we'd be in real trouble. That would, yeah. But
I have confidence that this expansion is better than quests. It's just that, and I like Fabled, but it seems that what we've done is just found decks that can run, whose Fabled card is good enough to include in a pre-existing thing, and then that's it. Job's done.
I would
swap
say the
out
only
3
deck,
cards. Yeah.
But like the Dragon Warrior feels like it's a substantially different deck.
Yeah, that one's quite different.
But that it kind of stands out for being the only one like that's doing really well.
Primarily because love Enzo, but on the whole, the aggressive warriors have not been working for the past year. And so the addition of like Precursory Strike and Logash has finally made it work.
Yeah. And like I was playing a quest warrior from that Dr. Panacea had posted in the deck library that was just which that seemed new. That lasted for me for like a day before I gave up on it because I was not getting there. But the idea was just basically that you were playing the quest, living long enough to finish the quest, and then you would aggressively look for Time Warp after having played 2 New Heights, so that you could Time Warp and then play Murazond in the same turn and then kill somebody for infinite. And I did that a few times. I learned after winning a whole bunch of games with the deck that there is actually an achievement for killing somebody with Murazond, because it took me that many games for somebody to not insta-concede and let me actually hit them with the dragon. Which I don't know if that's something that like they could try to track for, but it does feel bad when you have an achievement that relies on you winning the game a certain way and people just concede to save time, which is reasonable, but then you never get that achievement even if you accomplished it. But also, I just wasn't living that long against the decks that were like against the shamans and the Discover Hunters, because they would just get there before the mandatory 10 turns. Plus, you kind of had to have found all your draw early enough such that the idea is that you have the brochure that can flip into draw 2 spells. And I think there's just like Crystal Caverns and Time Warp that come out of the quest reward for Warrior. So then you can draw that and then have yourself set up for the following turn. But that implies that you have drawn all the natural spells out of your deck, which I was not having all that much success with doing.
I wonder if you were looking at a little bit of a different list. Because what I'm seeing is like the sort of popular quest warrior is
it is different. It was different.
It's about even into shaman. At the higher you get, the more even the shaman matchup is. Still slightly unfavored, but it gets more even the higher you go up. It is actually favored into Discover Hunter.
This was not running Elise. If what you're looking at is running Elise, then this was not that. This was all in on card draw to try to quote unquote turbo Murazond. Turbo being like turn 12. But
yeah, so the sort of more like Elise deck, it hard loses to like Protoss Mage, but it does well into Discover Hunter. It's about even to the Shaman, maybe a little under. It does well into Cycle Rogues, about even into Dragon Warrior. Loses to Peddler Demon Hunter.
I've just seen that in a Fever Dream or something, I went 5-1 with a Medivh Priest.
Excuse me, and you didn't at me? Like, what is, like, I'm offended.
I just assumed I was doing badly. There was one from 7 days ago that I just had gone 0-3, and then the more recent one, I think I picked up a list from somewhere that is doing the overplanner Twilight medium thing, and that I must have gotten lucky several times.
Okay.
Well,
I will say, if you are running an extremely top-heavy deck, Overplanner becomes a good card. Because even in the times where you don't get to use it to set up like huge mana discounts with the Twilight medium, that 5 mana 4/5 taunt battle cry set the cost of the top card of your deck to 1. It just helps you not draw your 10 drops 3 turns in a row.
Yeah, your 10 drops being the equivalent of lands with the scry mechanic in Hearthstone. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. And the Twilight medium can be powerful when you pull it off. I've had like intermittent success with stuff like that every so often. I did play a decent amount of Protoss Priest. I was playing, so there's Protoss Priest with Elise, and then I was playing a list with Umbra, and which felt pretty good, and Deos, which I'm not totally convinced was correct, but I was going to play it because it was the only new card in the deck. As people have probably figured out, Resuscitate still a good card at 6 mana.
Yep.
Not a problem there. I mean, it was better at 5 mana, but it's fine. Oftentimes you couldn't really get it out quite on curve anyway with everything. Like, you couldn't get everything to die off by 5 anyway, often, so you're not even getting it out that much later usually.
Yeah. If it comes out a turn later, it wasn't the end of the world. And sometimes you had to dig for it anyway to try to find it. And then you get it a little bit later, and it was still fine when you played it on like 7 if you hadn't drawn it.
It was funny with the Deos when it did work. Sometimes it was dead in my hand, but like what you could do is Umbra would repeat a lot of discounts, and or you could play Umbra just to repeat a lot of discounts, or you could play Umbra after like your first mothership if you like needed more gas against something. But if your mothership costs like nothing because you've Umbra'd, then you can do it with Deos. Or if you've had some stuff stick, which often happens, or even if they're just sentries, then you put Deos and then you kill things off, and your Void Rays get even bigger when you play them, and you can also get the Rogue Archon to happen twice.
Yeah, both the battle cry and the end of turn effect. Yeah.
So it was fun. I don't know if it's optimal, but I did put that list in to the notes because it was a little different, and I always really liked Protoss Priest. I understand people who are sick of it. And then I played some Hagatha Shaman. I had played a decent amount of it like when it sort of first, I sound so hipster, before it was cool and everyone knew about it for like 24 hours. I was playing
I liked Hagatha's old stuff better.
But it's still solid, and that's why you're seeing so much of it. It's just really hard to counter. That deck, the one thing I will say for it, it turns out it's not a Muradin deck. Like, Muradin's in there, but you often will have better tempo if you're playing other things. It's like a Flight of the Firehawk deck, and what you're doing is build, like, your bellhops get large and you play them and you put on pressure, or your Grofins get large and you play them and you put on pressure, and then later you can like Shutterwalk the big Grofin, or you can Shutterwalk your Ziliax if you're still playing the game at that point. And Parrot Sanctuary to get stuff down as soon as possible, and trying to like buff your things and get your things down for big swings in the middle of the game is really good. And sometimes, like for 6 mana, you'd probably rather play Furious Fowls than the weapon, because those 3/3 birds stick around.
Yep.
And if you have the initiative, or they're like behind some bellhops or something, your opponent sometimes just like can never kill them, especially in the mirror, because other shamans, the one thing that they don't have is AoE, except for the avatar form, but that's only 2 damage unless they already have the weapon out, in which case it's later. So those birds can just last if you get them out first. And you put them behind some taunts. Anyway, this is not a Hagatha Shaman thing. I also played some Discover Hunter, but we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah. So and we will talk about Discover Hunter in a lot more detail, but we've got a little bit of news and then a lot of tournament, and then we will talk about Discover Hunter because that seems to be one of the best things to do in the meta. And I mean, Hagatha Shaman is one of the best things to do. That's a little bit easier to play. Discover Hunter is better if you know how to play it, and that's why we're going to try to help you learn how to play it. But first, we have some news.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So we did have a hotfix that came out today. Patch 34.0.3, which is a server-side hotfix patch. There are a couple of mainly bug fixes. Malkazar's Ib now shows up in the history tab when its ability is triggered. I don't know how long that was a bug for, but it's doing it now. When you're getting Bwansamdi from Talanji of the Graves, Bwansamdi's boons now carry over to dormant minions. It's not really super clear what that means.
The boons that you give Bwansamdi, I think, are given to what Bwansamdi summons.
Right. Okay. So if he summons a dormant minion, then it will get the lifesteal or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Or taunt or whatever it happens to be. Not that helps you when it's dormant, but at least when it pops out, then it'll be better. Ice Trap no longer prevents Broxigar from being summoned. That's a counter. I would not expect that to be happening, but yeah. Raptor Herald is no longer in the zombies pool if you're playing the side quests for Hunter. That there you can't get Raptor Herald out of that. That's fine. Apparently, if you used Glide to shuffle a Portal of Argus into the deck, that also prevented Broxigar from being summoned after destroying the last minion from the final portal. So, I mean, something like a Broxigar is a new mechanic that's going to have a lot of edge cases, and these are kind of weird ones. So it's good that they're fixing them. And also, apparently, cards with the Fabled keyword, and I'm not sure if it's the non-collectible ones or all of them, weren't triggering Time Lord Nozdormu's ability, which is the dormant dragon that wakes up one turn sooner after you play a card from the new expansion.
Nozdormu was another one with like lots of little bugs, most of which I think they fixed before launch. But the like bugs channel in the theory crafting Discord server was like 50%. This didn't proc Nozdormu, or this did. The one that I found was that the Timeways coin procced Nozdormu during theory crafting.
Oh,
they fixed that before launch, I think. Probably because I found it, but I was like, that shouldn't happen. But like, there's just so many ways something could get tagged incorrectly. So.
Yeah. They also clarify two things that are not bugs, that are working as intended. So boons are not transferred to minions summoned by Bwansamdi when Bwansamdi is stolen from the opponent. So if they've played a Talanji, they've summoned Bwansamdi with a boon, and then you steal it, the boon is attached to you as a player, not to Bwansamdi, which is non-intuitive, but apparently the way that it works. So do be aware of that. And also, Demon Hunters can't get Broxigar if the opponent stole and played the copy of the final portal to Argus. That sounds like, like whatever that priest legendary was, that if you played the card that was from the opponent's deck, it would give you the original copy and take it from them. I don't know if there are other. Oh, there's that either a rogue or a warlock card that lets you like draw off the opponent's deck, and then if you don't play, it's like a demon, and if you don't play it, that turn, then it goes back into their deck. You don't ever see it played in a deck. You see it played from Kil'jaeden occasionally.
Or there's ways in Wild.
Yeah, it happens more in Wild. I'm trying to think of like how would cause that in Standard. I think that's the only way you can do it in Standard. In Wild, you have things like now I've repressed the memory of the guy who discovers a card from your opponent's hand and swaps them. But yeah,
Theotar.
Yeah, so do be aware of that. Those are good to know if you're playing with or against those things, especially if you enjoy taking your opponent's toys and playing with them. It's good to know what you can take and what you can expect to happen and whatnot. Speaking of things being taken away, Aviana has been banned in Wild and in Arena. There is some sort of a bug with her. It's not. I was trying to find out what it was, and it's only interestingly. So Aviana was reprinted in the Caverns of Time Wild only expansion, and that seems to be the only version that's bugged and therefore banned.
This, by the way, is not the current Aviana in Standard. This is the old Grand Tournament 9-mana 5/5 Aviana. Your minions cost 1.
Yeah, OG Aviana. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you happen to have the original one from the Grand Tournament still in your collection, that seems to be okay. That's not what you're going to get in Arena. So that's going to, if you happen to have an Arena run that had her in it, your run was going to be ended, and then you'll get the refund on the run. But yeah, if you have been playing long enough to have an old school TGT Aviana, then go nuts. But that's probably not most people.
Yeah.
I just assumed that something bad happened in Wild, and usually Aviana is involved in that. It's like the old meme of, why is it when anything goes bad, it's one of you three? But usually it's Aviana who's to blame. But that wasn't it. It was just some sort of a bug with the Scavenger Time version. They'll fix that, and then they'll return her. The other piece of news is that if we had talked last week about making things right with the ranked rewards. Those packs should have gone out by now. So if you logged in and just saw 4 or 5 packs earned randomly, that's why. If you haven't logged in this week, go ahead and log in and you'll get your packs and get to open them. So that's good to know. And that's the other piece of news that I guess we should mention here is that next week is Thanksgiving in the United States, and so we will not be having a show next week. We're going to be taking that off we normally record on Thursdays. We're going to be taking Thursday to spend the holiday with our families, but we will be back the following week after that, and hopefully we'll not have missed too much news in the interim. But the one piece of big news that we do need to talk about is that we had a tournament last weekend. So let's talk about what happened there.
It's the Grand Tournament!
All right. So we had the last chance qualifier for Worlds, which is exactly what it sounds like. If you wanted to qualify for Worlds, this was your last opportunity. And there were 8 players who made it through the, I believe, 89-player bracket. We said this was the most high-stakes event of the year because there was no money on the line. It was just who's gonna get to go to Worlds. Because there was nothing for everyone that didn't win, which is pretty brutal. Yeah. So the players who made it through the Swiss and into that top 8 were Chunsu, Torige, Gaboom, Savor or Savor, I don't know which one it is, McBanterface, Rhine, Shaxi, and Talso. Fun fact, Talso, a Brazilian player who actually is a caster and like organizes a lot of events and stuff, so that's kind of cool. but Banter, Ryan, Shaxi, Talso got eliminated in the quarters. Gaboom and Saver in the semis, and Chonsu took first place, which honestly, looking at the names, that's kind of the expected outcome, is that Chonsu takes first place. He was just like very, cool as a cucumber a whole day.
This is not his first rodeo.
Yeah. It's, name been around a while, and yeah, definitely had the performance to show for it. A little bit surprising looking at lineups. So we had a bunch of Control DK, a bunch of Discover Hunter was like the most popular and the winningest deck.
Everyone in the top 8 had Discover Hunter. That's the only thing that was consistent across all the top 8 lineups.
Yeah, exactly. And then 3 Quest Warriors, 6 Hagatha Shamans of varying, various varieties. 1 Aulonius Druid, 1 Peddler DH, 2 Protoss Mages. There were 4 of the DKs that were sort of Fyrak DK. The weirdest lineups were our top 2 of Chonsu and Torige. So Chonsu had Fyrak DK, Discover Hunter, Drunk Paladin, and Cycle Rogue. And Torige had Discover Hunter, Arcane Mage, Drug Paladin, and Hag the Shaman. Yes, you heard that right. Arcane Mage. What? I don't know how. But yeah. Sadly, the Arcane Mage did not get there. I think I said behind the scenes that the Blizzard optimal outcome would be for Torige to get there, with Arcane Mage being the, only really, really new deck. But it was all fun to watch regardless. And yeah, Drunk Paladin really, really performed like way better than I would have thought.
So is it something that it has specific matchups that it's good in? Because I don't think I've seen any Paladins on ladder. I haven't heard anything about Paladin. You would think that
I don't think anyone
something
wants
like this
to play it.
Oh, that also goes into it. But even I would think that even if it's boring as hell, right? If it wins, some people will jam it anyway. And I haven't heard anything about Drunk Paladin for ladder, even since then.
On HS Guru, they have taken from Battlefy like archetype stats that includes the Swiss, and it looks like including Swiss, Drunk Paladin went 55.3% on 47 games. But yeah, I wonder. I'm gonna just click my way into Drunk Paladin. How is that doing on ladder? It's like there's not enough to see stats on it, I feel like.
That's the thing, right? Okay. It's weird.
Okay, so it looks like it's Diamond through Legend since the patch. It's at 48% win rate. If I look at past day, does it still have enough? If I look at past day, there's not enough data. If I look at past 3 days, there's still not enough data. So I have to do it from...
I think there's just not enough data because people don't want to play Drunk Paladin. I also think people are not as good at Drunk Paladin as Chonsu and Torige. So,
yeah, I think that's a major part of it. And so people who are wanting a higher skill cap deck are playing Discover Hunter instead of Drunk Paladin.
Right.
Which is probably accurate.
I'm looking at this one list from Maxibon. Actually, let me just change what I'm sharing, because I think this might tell the story. So it's got a small sample size. It's like 487 games since the patch, Diamond through Legend. 38% win rate into Shaman. It's the coin flip into Hunter, and then 30% into Death Knight. So that's not great for climbing on ladder. If you're 38% into Shaman, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
That'll tell the story. God, looking at the meta tab on HS Guru, Imbue Druid is in tier 2. Wilted Priest just about at 50%. I actually lost to a Wilted Priest today. Wallow Warlock slightly above 50%. Dark Gift Rogue.
Yeah.
Elemental Shaman. The new Nature Shaman, which she's calling Masochist Shaman, is Diamond 3 Legends slightly above 50. But yeah, there's hand buff DK. People are playing a lot of old hits here. Elemental Mage is doing very well. Someone posted a version of Elemental Mage, I think it was very hyped in our server, with tsunamis, and you draw it with the watercolor artist. I haven't tried it, but
I can see it.
honestly, I can see it.
Seems plausible.
But yeah, so I mean, if there's any older deck that you've been wanting to play, a lot of them are doing positive, but it's hard. Hoggetha Shaman has a 60.6% win rate. Diamond through Legend since the patch. That's
high. Yeah.
pretty high. So you don't want to be bad into Shaman.
No.
Yeah.
You want to at least have that not be a super unfavored matchup, whatever you're picking to play.
Yeah, you need to be able to at least like hang with Shaman and Hunter because Shaman and Hunter at Diamond through Legend are 35% of the meta combined, give or take. So you do need to be able to play against both of those decks, and if you have a 40% win rate into Shaman, it's going to be rough sledding if that's your plan.
Yeah.
So I guess that does make sense. That it would be, I wouldn't have seen it on ladder, but it's also all old cards and not particularly exciting to play, which doesn't help. If it's boring and it doesn't beat the best deck in the format, that's not a great
old
combination.
Cards that have been nerfed.
Drunk
Like
Paladin?
many of
No.
them.
Yeah.
Like you no longer get the attack. You no longer can deal damage face with Holy Glow Sticks. You have the Aegis of Light costs 2 mana. When I say you no longer get the attack, I mean on Divine Brew.
Yeah.
But like there's just been so many. You have the new thing is from last expansion. It's Story of Galvadon, right? Give a minion 3 random bonus effects, and that is impactful because you get Wind Fury sometimes.
You get Wind Fury often if you can do it with Linessa. That was a major thing that we saw people doing in the tournament, was try to get Wind Fury on something with the Story of Galvadon and Linessa out, because then you're almost guaranteed to hit it. You're going to get 6 out of 7.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a 1 in 7 chance of whiffing.
Which means that I'm going to whiff 95% of the time.
Which is how that works, yes. I mean, but I'll definitely... I linked the VOD in the show notes because it's a little hard to find on YouTube, but that's where it'll stay up longer. If you haven't given it a look, it's always a good time to watch the tournaments. And I also put in links to every Discover Hunter game that was on broadcast, of which there were 7. So quite a few Discover Hunter games on broadcast. If you are playing or wanting to play any of those decks, like just kind of looking like any of the decks that were in the top 8, if you kind of scan through and look for games, that's some very high level play that you will see, with excellent high level commentary on what's going on in those games.
Something interesting also that you link to is the full tournament stats, which means like not just this top 8 portion, but the the full 89 players and everything. The highest win rate deck, of course, very small sample size, was Wilted Priest at 62.5%. But of course, Discover Hunter, total games 222, with basically 56.8 win rate, except adjusted win rate 66.6 because it was banned all the time. It was banned 52% of the time.
180 bans.
Yeah. It was the winningest deck. It was the most brought deck, and it was the most banned deck. So
it was banned 52% of matches.
It's a lot. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is not a surprise, right? Like, I mean, that was the clear, like, consensus best deck, even if it wasn't the actual best deck. It was the consensus best deck, the deck that you kind of knew everybody was going to bring going into this tournament, and you would have built your lineup strategy around it if you were either banning it or you had a target, some sort of a target strategy, at least that you knew you could beat it. if you were leaving it up. So it's not a surprise that it was going to be banned a lot, because it was known. That was like everything else was kind of a wild card as to what people were going to bring. It was pretty clear that Discover Hunter was going to be in a lot of lineups.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of Discover Hunter, then we can just go talk about that, because that's what we're going to talk about. So if you also want to win a last chance tournament, first of all, you need a time machine, but then also you would need to learn how to play Discover Hunter. So we're going to talk about how to do that.
All right, so we are, of course, talking about Discover Hunter. This is one of the, I'd say, higher skill cap decks, but it's not Garrote Rogue. Don't let that intimidate you from playing this deck. There's a couple different ways that you can build it. So kind of the most standard way, I think, would be with Elise. Vicious Syndicate just put up an Elise list as their list today. And this is one that it didn't even have that many stats, and already it has 221 games with a pretty good win rate, 56.6%. In this list, instead of you're running Ceaseless Expanse and Wisp in order to get Elise active, and your top end is Ziliax, Incendious, Bob the Bartender. We are only running those because of Elise. We are not running those, like, they're the best cards that we could find to run with Elise, but they're not like the point of this deck. Then they can be useful on times when we have a bit of a slower game. We actually covered Discover Hunter back in like December of 2024 last year. But one thing that makes it really different is the Fabled Sisters, Sylvanas, Ilaria, and Verisa. And Neri also makes it really different. I've actually been playing more of the other version without Elise that's like more focused in on Neri, but we can start with this one. So you're kind of piecing together a win condition from a couple different places. You can get a lot of damage that you can double with Neri if you want through like Mixologist, through Grifta. Some lists are even running the like Murloc that has rocks, not this particular one.
There's the thing about this deck is that it's very flexible, which means that there's a bunch of different builds.
Yeah.
And it's really a matter of how do you, on average, want to win? Because you have kind of two approaches. One is just going to be the pure value approach, where you just get a bunch of things on board, and those things just turn into damage because you end up with a board that your opponent really can't deal with, and you just get to beat them in the head with it for a couple turns. The other way that you can win with this deck is doing some sort of Neri shenanigans. So Neri is a 3-mana minion that says whenever you play a one-cost minion, double its stats. Nobody cares about that line attacks. The line attacks they care about is whenever you cast a 1-cost spell, cast it twice, which is why we have Grifta. Generally with Grifta, you're looking for the 6 damage spell, and that's a lot of damage, and especially if you can, because this deck is also built around the Discover package of Ragnari Scout, of Exarch Niall, and then Alien Encounters, right? Since Grifta is Discover, you can get multiple copies of the 6 damage spell. If you get even just 2 of those, that's 24 damage from hand, but you have to luck into that. You also have the Mixologists, you have the Discovers from Verisa that can sometimes get you Arcane Shot. You can discover copies of the Incendious Eruptions and then cast those from hand with Neri. I had a game today where I was doing that and did quite a bit of damage against a Death Knight that had me dead to rights. I played like 2 Ragnari Scouts and just got a 3 damage Eruption and just kept casting it at them. And then you also have Tidepool Pupils in order to get more copies of the 1-cost spells, if you can't discover copies of them from Ragnari Scout.
Yeah, and sometimes even just doing Neri into, if you have the Alien Encounters at exactly 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's like a great turn 4.
Or like, yeah, you do that, and then while you've got your board all the way full because of or almost all the way full, right? You reduce Ziliax. Well, I guess this one isn't the aggressive Ziliax, but in the non-Elise versions where you aren't running Ziliax 9, you can double the stats of your Ziliax because you're doing ticking pylon. And then you just have like this huge ticking pylon Ziliax buffing the attack of all your taunts.
Yeah, that was one. That's not in the particular list that I put in, but maybe I can add that before we ship the episode. One of the ones with the ticking pylon. But yeah, this particular list is just like slightly slower. Elise can... So copying Neri does not help you because it says cast it twice, not cast it an additional time. But there's plenty of other stuff that you can copy, or you can just use the location from Elise to like not die. You can discover more stuff with it. You can get a little armor if you need to. It's very flexible, like the rest of the deck. You can copy a taunt with that. Really, one of the things about this deck is you can do a lot of stuff, but a note that Pocket made during the qualifiers was you kind of have to think about which direction you're going with the deck and start setting that up. And that can also be a little bit, what do you happen to see with your discovers? Like, you're looking for some early discovers in the early game. And depending on what you find with that and who your opponent is and how the game is going, you're heading in a bit of a, like, I'm just going to survive direction, or a, like, I'm going to try to set up an early Neri turn. Or maybe, like, I'm really looking for the Fabled Sisters, because that's what I'm finding, and I'm going to try to get, like, a big Sylvanas. The non-Elise version of the deck that we have here is actually running Brewmasters, which you can Brewmaster a Mixologist, or you can Brewmaster Grifta, but you can also Brewmaster Sylvanas, and I have one that way. Do note that if you bounce the Sylvanas, she doesn't count herself as another sister played.
Right.
But she's still good.
And the damage does go face, so that can contribute to your win condition. Like, you're probably not going to win the game with her outright, but it does get you a fair amount of the way there.
Also, you can do things like when you Rangari Scout to get copies of them, you can do weird things where you will, like, play one of them, it ticks up another one, and then after you've played, the third sister, you can go back and play the second copy of one of the earlier ones for, like, even more stats to your deck or even more damage or whatever.
Yeah, so something that you can do, like, let's say I had a situation where I had, like, 2 Verisas and 2 Sylvanas. I, like, played Verisa, then Sylvanas, then Verisa again, then Sylvanas again. One decision to make with this deck is, like, when do you play your Rangari Scouts? I think one thing that I have been doing is being a little too conservative on my Rangari Scouts. I've had people against me just, like, tempo it on 1 if it's a Hunter versus Hunter, and be like, hey, you running the version with Arcane Shot or not? Because I've got a follow-up bird watching, and then if you still can't clear it, I've got, a tracking and blah, blah, blah.
Do make sure that you have something that discovers in your hand when you're doing that. Like, that's a play where you do need to be paying attention to the rest of your hand, because, like, there are games where I've gotten just, like, I've been sitting on an Alien Encounters that was costing 4 for most of the game and hating life. And that kind of does happen occasionally. So you do need to make sure, like, if you're going to tempo Ragnaris Scout on 1, that's fine. Make sure you have something to discover with on 2, assuming that it sticks.
Don't play it just to be a 1/2. But you don't need a ton of value from it necessarily. Sometimes you might want to save it for specifically, okay, maybe they're a little bit of a slower deck, they have some armor, you're going to need to have some burn to kill them, so you're saving the Rangari Scouts, like, specifically for Grifta, and or, like, specifically for Tidepool Pupil or something. But other times, like, you can guess out if you didn't happen to get Nayel, or you, like, just have been bricking, drawing your discovering. So if you're kind of bricking, drawing your discover, but you have a Rangari Scout and, like, 1 bird watching, like, just play the Rangari Scout and the bird watching and try to get something else that'll keep you going through your deck. Other games, you have hand space issues. Like, I've also had to kill off my Rangari Scouts because I had no more room in my hand, and I couldn't keep discovering if I didn't kill them. So you can have an embarrassment of riches with it as well, but you want some value out of it, except for in certain situations you don't necessarily need perfect value out of it. Getting extra of like all kinds of stuff is helpful. Extra alien encounters, very helpful. Extra Sylvanas, very helpful. Extra Tidepool Pupil can be the difference. Like
Extra Incendious is pretty good.
Oh, and that's a thing that you can copy with the lease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can copy with the lease, and you can also just get an extra one and then have it buff up the first ones and put the first one's eruptions and then have 5 more eruptions in your deck. And if you need to find, if you're relying on finding burn spells for Neri, that's a lot of burn spells that you're putting into your deck that you can do that. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I learned this the hard way today. If you fill up a Tidepool Pupil with eruptions, the eruptions don't have any of the buffs that they got from the Incendious end of turn trigger. So the eruptions from the Tidepool Pupil always do 1 damage, which was an unpleasant surprise when I saw that and thought I was going to do 3, and I ended up doing 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another unpleasant surprise you can have, and I had an opponent lose because of this, is in this particular version, the Grifta treasure that discounts your hand can be a trap. In previous Discover Hunters, that was kind of actually premium. Like that's what you wanted to go for. But in this version, if you're planning on using Neri, she works with the current cost of the card. So my opponent discounted their whole hand and then was throwing damage spells at my face. And then I was not dead. And then they went, oops, and conceded. Because they had not been being doubled by Neri. It was just sort of muscle memory going. Now, I'm not saying I'm superior to that. Like, I could see myself doing that. But just learn from my opponent's mistakes so that they can have died for all of us to not do that. Also, we've, this has been true for as long as we've had Discover Hunter, but just your reminder that Mixologist is not a Discover, and Elise is not a Discover. So you're picking out of 3 things. It's using the Discover UI, but it is crafting is a different thing. So it will not count towards your alien encounters. It will not count towards your Rangari Scout. But you can still make a Mixologist potion, get it in your Tidepool Pupil, and then get copies of it with a Rangari Scout out of the
Tidepool Pupil is a Discover, as is Xavius. So that is important as well. Yeah. And like sometimes you'll get like also, is it Verisa that's doing the discovering of spells, or Illyria? I forget. I know it's not Sylvanas. Like, which one is doing the discover spell?
Verisa's the buff, and Illyria's discover.
Illyria's the spell discover. So, like, those are also things that you can get from the Ragnarii Scout. That can be, again, mind your hand space, because that's going to be 6 cards if you've got a fully buffed up Illyria with a Ragnarii Scout, but you can just get a whole bunch of value and figure it out later. I'd gotten a detailed notes that gave me a Sasquatch. And then the turn before, turn 4, I played 2 alien encounters, and then turn 5, I played a Sasquatch that I had discounted with my Parrot Sanctuary. And after the opponent had completely cleared the whole board and thought that they were fine, and then I just played a Sasquatch and replayed it. So Parrot Sanctuary is also it's not a new thing, and we've kind of learned by now how to play with Parrot Sanctuary, but you do want to be thinking about that in terms of making sure that you're actually going to use the discount when you do it. Like, there are times when if you have 2 mana left and you have a 2-drop, that you want to play that and then proc the Sanctuary for the next turn rather than just using it up because it happens to be there. Though you can also chain a bunch of things for free, like Scarab Keychains and Glacial Shards, or every so often you discover a story of Karnassa. That's a lot of fun with the Parrot Sanctuaries, especially when you bird watching a raptor so that they're all buffed up, and then you're playing a whole bunch of like 6/4s for free. That's pretty good. That's the thing that's really challenging about this deck, is that there's no one clear win con. It is very choose your own adventure as far as how you're going to win the game. And as you said, the Pocket said on the broadcast, you kind of need to identify it early because if you try to do if you try to play towards multiple win cons, you won't have enough gas to get to any of them. So you do need to kind of, and some of them need plan Bs. Like if your plan is Grifta into damage, you need to have a plan for what happens if I don't roll 6 damage. Do I have another Grifta? Can I bounce it? Do I have damage that I can get out of a mixologist? Right? Like you need to be, because like some of these win cons, especially the ones that rely on damage, are not consistent enough for you to for sure do it, which means you sometimes do Grifta earlier than you might otherwise to figure out if you have that win con available to you or not. Because you can't necessarily just do it on the turn that you're going to win, because if you don't, then you need to be thinking on the fly real fast. How are you going to work with the jank that Grifta just gave you in order to be able to turn that into a win otherwise?
Yeah, I think an easy mistake when looking at like the lists and things is to say, oh, this is a combo deck. I'm supposed to get deal 3 damage from Mixologist and deal 6 from Grifta, and that's how we win. And it's like, well, that's sometimes how you win, but not always. And yeah, the hardest way to win, but most powerful, is to get reduced cards in your hand by 1. And you know, we saw Pocket do this at the last like actual MT, where it was just like, oh, okay, I have reduced by 1. I guess none of my stuff costs mana anymore.
Yeah, that's one you're probably not doing in the version. We have a lower to the ground version that like tops out at alien encounters and has a lot more 1 cost damage and is more focused on Neri. You probably don't do that in that one. But if you're running some more expensive stuff,
it can still be helpful.
Especially if you ran Neri out early to get like a doubled alien encounters, and so now you've used your Neri. You know?
Well, I mean, sometimes Neri is part of it, right? Because you're reducing, you know, twice all the stuff in your hand, and then you go Rangari Scout with Tidepool Pupil and get 2 of them to your hand. That's crucial, right? Is that you're sort of keeping them flowing, right? Where you get extra copies from Tidepool Pupil, and then you discount everything again, and like you'll interweave in other discovers and things to refill so that you've got more stuff to discount. Like that's where you could take some really chunky spells off for Farisa, the Discover spell sister.
Illyria,
that one. And you know, be fine with it because it's like, well, we're reducing everything anyway, so.
Yeah, that is a good point. If you were doing that and you were playing the Elise version, you could have a bigger location maybe, and then have one that's discovering spells, or you know, you've discounted the location now. That is not one that I have done, at least recently, but it's easy to like miss that there's whole other avenues that you could take to win games with this deck. Mixologist too, you kind of want to have a sense when you're playing Mixologist what are you looking for. Often you're either looking for deal 3 damage or you're looking for deal 2 damage to the board, or both. Those are kind of the main things that I'm looking for. I have even done, like, I did an emergency clear that did win me the game earlier today, where I played Neri and then a Mixologist thing that did 2 to the board just to deal 4 to the board, because that was the only way I was going to clear and survive. And that actually doesn't kill Neri. And then I was able to put her behind a couple taunts and they actually couldn't clear her. One thing about the Shaman, again, is that they don't really have AoE. So sometimes things will stick behind taunts. They can target something specifically with like the Furious Fowls. And some of them run Hex, and like there are some things that they can do, but they don't have a lot of AoE. And neither does like the Dragon Warrior. Unless I'm forgetting something. Quest Warrior obviously does, but
and Death Knight still has Corpse Explosion, because of course they do.
Death Knight still has Corpse Explosion.
But I think that like the +2 health to your minions is kind of underrated
That's true.
Out of Mixologist, like especially with Neri, like you can just give everything big butts and then say you need to remove my board now. And if they can't, then that's where you could have ticking pylon Ziliax, or you can just hit them a couple times, right? and sometimes that's enough, and that lets you, especially if you're able to protect Neri behind it, and they can still do some of the damage to get over the top, or you have a triple Sylvanas to do some more face damage, or you haven't found Niall and you just have a hero power that does damage. Like, you can sometimes just get there with that. So I think there's use cases for different things. I think draw a card is probably fine. Armor in specific situations is okay. Generally, I don't think I'm looking for like get a random demon or add a 2/2 to the board. That's generally not what I'm looking for. But I think it's worth understanding like when you can use certain mixologist ingredients in order to be able to help your board state.
And sometimes you can type to think ahead. So if you're facing a demon hunter, certainly if it's an aggro demon hunter, you might just like probably you'll have to play the mixologist for AoE as soon as possible, unless you're getting there just with a lot of alien encounters. But if they're a deck that runs Blob of Tar, for example, then deal 2 AoE might be a good thing to pick up ahead of time, because once you kill the Blob of Tar, that kills the 1/2s that it leaves behind. So this is definitely a deck that rewards knowing about your opponent and the kinds of stuff that they tend to do. If you don't, just go with whatever furthers your own game plan. But this is a deck where it's helpful to know what people are doing. Parallax Cannon is a card that we have in the lower curve version, and I've actually that's a lot of damage. This is the 3 mana 2/3 weapon, has +2 attack if you've discovered this turn. You're discovering every turn, so it just does 12. or helps you survive.
It's turning the Niall hero power into both that and the original hero power, if you think about it, because you're still doing the 2 damage face. It's just with extra steps when you have the Parallax Cannon out.
And it can help you clear something, especially it has Spellburst. Your hero is immune this turn. You do have to think about when you're going to use that. If there's an option of playing a spell versus not playing a spell, because it only happens once as a Spellburst. So that's worth keeping in mind. But sometimes that can be useful if you're being burned down a little bit. The Elise version has like Bob and Ziliax and stuff like that as a little bit of a later game stabilization. Lower to the ground version doesn't, so you're really trying to get alien encounters out as soon as possible. You're using Sylvanas as a clear. You're bouncing her potentially with Brewmaster. You're using Mixologist as clear. Like, if you're facing aggro specifically. If you're not facing aggro, then you're thinking about how do I do damage to their face instead.
It also does run double Glacial Shard, and the alien encounters is also decent survival.
Yes. So Glacial Shard can be something where you can even use it fairly early just to keep them from getting advantageous trades on your board. Like, you don't even necessarily have to save it for a really big thing late. Like, it can be useful for that. But this version of the deck wants to win a little earlier. You can just Glacial Shard their 4/4 so that it doesn't kill your 2/4 taunt quite yet, and then you can maybe do a better trade against it on your turn. Like, stuff like that is perfectly good. We had mentioned with the Parent Sanctuary, you want to make sure that you're not just hitting it without thinking about whether you're going to use it. One thing that I definitely recommend is on the 3rd tick, like, don't just press the 3rd tick until you're about to use it.
Unless you need board space.
Unless you need the board space. That is the only reason that you would ever do it when you're not about to use it. The earlier ones, you can make an argument for, if I press it now, if I don't think I'm going to play any Battlecry minions for 2 turns, which usually you are going to, but occasionally you're not, then pressing it early might be able to let you cheat something out 2 turns early. But I do that more like in the Hagatha Shaman sometimes to get something down. Like, I don't know. When in doubt, think about like, okay, do I see a clear thing that I probably want to spend this on this turn or next turn. It can be really, not that you have to save it for specific things, but just that you don't want to float mana because you used it.
I will say though, if you are the kind of person who is likely to forget to press it, then press it ahead of time. I have been that person, and I have thanked my past self for having pressed the button on a prior turn ahead of time to remind myself that I have the discount. Because it is very easy to forget about it if you're not, because there's a lot to pay attention to in this deck, and it is very easy to just miss that and then mess up your turn. So if that's you, it's fine to pre-press it to make sure that you're getting yourself the discount.
That's actually really true. It is a worse mistake to forget about it than it is to float a mana with it. So, yeah, if you're like, there's already enough to think about with this deck, then just whenever you see it, press it. That's okay. It's maybe not optimal in every situation, but it is. We've had this discussion before about like which mistakes you're allowed to make versus not in a particular deck. That's a mistake you're more allowed to make than forgetting it exists. And then going, like, I even did that today earlier at one point where I was like, oh, I had a Parrot Sanctuary on my board this whole time. That was me having played for too long. I was really worried, actually, when Steve suggested that we do this deck. I was like, oh no, with Protoss Priest and Hagatha Shaman, I'd gotten myself up to rank 500 and was super pleased with myself. And Discover Hunter's hard. I'm going to tank it, but I'm still at 500. It's been up and down. But especially if you played any of the Discover Hunter before, it's not quite the same. It does feel different enough to be interesting. Plus, it's just an interesting deck in general, but it's a lot of the same patterns are there from last year if you played this deck at any point in the past year.
I do really like the addition of the Windrunner sisters. I think they add a nice little, I don't know, mini game almost of like, okay, I've got to play them in like the right order or whatever, and like, oh, do I take this here? And there's fun stuff like if you do get the +1/+1 or more on all the minions in your deck, and suddenly, now your Glacial Shard is kind of big, and so you go for like this Neri turn where you play your Glacial Shards and like freeze their minions and defend them behind the the alien encounters, and suddenly that like that doubling stats of one cost things is like quite relevant because you've boosted the stats from Varisa and from bird watching or whatever, and you can set up some pretty sweet boards. And also, this was a thing before as well, right? But like pretty premium on Mixologist, getting the +2 health and something that makes a minion sometimes, right? And then you just go Neri and use like the doubling Mixologist potions, especially if you've got Pupil in hand, to just kind of go nuts where it's like, okay, well, I have an 11 health Neri. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, that's another place where thinking about, like, can my opponent actually deal with stuff? Like, again, we're not necessarily playing a combo deck. If you have all the combo pieces in your hand, like you play Grifta and you've got it, then, like, play and, wait until you've got your perfect lethal. But otherwise, like, if you see a good place to play Neri, you want some value out of her. I would rarely put her out on 3. I don't know that I would ever put her out on 3 without something to do with her. But if you see a pretty good situation, like, okay, Neri into doubled alien encounters, hey, clear this, and then I can do more stuff with it, like, go for it, because there's lots of different ways that she can be helpful. Just in general, like, same with Tidepool Pupil. If you have a Tidepool Pupil in hand, this is one thing, again, where it does really help to be playing on PC, because you can, like, hover over the Tidepool Pupil and see what's in it. And that helps a lot.
You should add
Deck Tracker
with Deck
specifically.
Tracker. Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, that is not part of the game. So for those people who
or
are not
Firestone,
able to use Deck
I'm
Tracker,
sure just does the same thing. But yeah.
Yeah. So it is really helpful to know what's in the Tidepool Pupil. If you don't have that, it's a lot of paying attention to what might be in it. But you can change the order of how you're playing stuff, but I wouldn't like not play spells. Unless, again, you're like, I had one game where I didn't play a spell because I had the Grifta things in hand, and I had a like deal 3, and they had a lot of help, and I had planned out my exact OTK. Otherwise, like, play spells, just try to play the spell you'd rather get again first. So that it's in your Tidepool pupil. It's that balance between like doing things that are good now and trying to do it in an order that sets up good turns later. One more thing on Tidepool pupil. Everyone knows this, but it can be easy to forget. If you haven't played 3 spells, you can't get anything out of the pupil. So don't plan out your OTK and then realize you actually did not spend enough spells while it was in your hand to get stuff out of it. So, yeah. Like me. Ask me how I know this. I've actually had situations where I don't have spells in hand with this deck. We don't have a ton of spells, actually. We have a lot of minions.
It's being discovered or being generated from like a mixologist or a Grifta or whatever, or you're getting them off of Illyria, or you're finding spells off of Scarab Keychain, or like that sort of thing. Like, you don't run a lot of spells naturally. It's a lot of battle cries in this deck.
Yeah. If we look at like the mulligan, really what you're looking for, let me do this as like the archetype card stats. So Niall is like your top mulligan win rate card. Because then you will never have draw problems again. Also good, Scarab Keychain and tracking, just having a turn 1 is very good. Actually, interestingly, it looks like all of the sisters, Sylvanas the most, but all of the sisters are pretty good mull targets. It looks like Elise is barely positive here. I don't know if I would keep her. I might keep Parrot Sanctuary if I had something to go with Parrot Sanctuary. Like, I had a game earlier today where I went coin, Parrot Sanctuary, keychain, and then turn to Niall. And my opponent said, wow. That doesn't usually happen, but if I had a hand like that, I might keep it. Bird watching, you can keep. It's actually not nearly as great a keep as it seems like it will be. But you can keep it, but really you're looking for like the 1 costs. Actually, it's very different when you look at different lists versus
apparently
when you look at...
Wisp has a 27.6% mulligan impact.
Out of how many games?
I don't ask questions like that. I just look at funny stats.
Yeah, if I look at just the deck, the Elise deck, then that's definitely saying don't keep Elise. I would trust that more. Bird watching, you can keep Niall. Neri you can keep, but you don't necessarily keep her. Mixologist. Grifta, I would keep maybe if I was doing like the well, I don't know if I would keep Grifta. Grifta is here with a positive mulligan impact.
I might keep Grifta against something like a Protoss Priest where you want to steal a sentry and not let them resuscitate it or get the discount from it. Like, that's sometimes a valid... Of course, the one time that I actually got that to line up, they had the other one in hand. So, because of course they did. But, if that's something where you can keep them from resuscitating for a few more turns, right? Because they just have to find the other one before they can do anything, and they don't get the discount from the first one to be able to get the second one from the weapon, then sometimes it's a valid play, but that's very much a, an outlier. I guess maybe against a Demon Hunter, you might do the same thing so they can't, like, keep hitting you with the Spirit Peddlers. You take the first one so they can't resurrect it. That might be a thing you would think about. But again, they're probably going to wait for that until they can kill it off anyway, so
this doesn't have, like, a super... It doesn't have a super clear mulligan. I mean, keep Scarab Keychain, keep Niall.
You can keep tracking.
Parrot Sanctuary, especially if you have something to go with it. I wouldn't necessarily keep it by itself. You can keep Bird Watching. Keep Grifta in some situations, potentially. Some things, like, I often keep the sisters. There is an argument for, like, you can get... if you don't keep them and then you discover them with a Rangari Scout, that can be better. But if I'm facing what might be aggro, and I've got a Sylvanas in my hand, I'm just keeping her. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
if that's
it would have to be
technically
heavy
correct.
aggro because I would keep Varisa over the other two just to
Mhm.
kind of get the Keliseth thing going early. Because like you really want to be pumping up the Sylvanas as much as you can. Like ideally, like I discovering one off of Illyria is usually fine. Into like a +2/+2 buff from Varisa, but you really want to be getting as much value out of Sylvanas as you can, and being able to get her with a Ragnari Scout is going to be better. Tracking on
Yeah.
one is also fine because that just starts getting your discounts going for on alien encounters.
Yeah.
That's why it's fine to keep. Because normally we would say, well, just toss it tracking because you're basically getting it for free if you toss it in the mulligan. But here you actually keep the tracking because it gets your alien encounters down faster. And that's also why we're running Scarab Keychain.
Yeah.
Like,
Also because it gives you something to do on too.
yeah, it gives you something to do on 2, and it's just another discount for alien encounters as soon as possible. So that's really the logic behind having that there. But yeah, usually I don't play, like Varisa's often the one you want to play first, unless you need to discover from Malaria, and then Sylvanas later, unless like you're gonna die.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're really playing things early and like going for optimal, I think it's like discover a spell and then give everything +2/+2, and then now you've got a juiced up Sylvanas. If you manage to pull that off, right? That's that happens to you. You don't like try and make it happen.
It's kind of like the Logosh in the Warrior. 2 out of 3 is not too hard. 3 out of 3 is hard.
Is there anything else to add?
I would just say this is, it can take a little getting used to, but it's really fun to have that extra level of difference between each game. And, give yourself a little time to learn the ins and outs of it. If you want to lean into the combo a little bit more and have that be a little more consistent and be that a little bit more often, not necessarily every game, but more of your games, then I would do the low to the ground version. If you want more of an Elise deck, you want a little bit more like late game survivability, and just like using Elise, which is something that most of us are now familiar with how to use after all this time, then I would go with that version. And we had included, I might just cut from, we'd had a version that like had Incendious but not Elise, but I think I agree with Zacho that is just worse. You should either do Elise or you should go all in and not split the difference. Even though I did pretty well with the split the difference deck, like it's still a strong deck.
But how much better could you have done without?
Exactly. It's an opportunity cost is what it is. But yeah, don't get discouraged if it sounds like, oh, this is a lot to think about. Would just say there's a lot of decisions, but you don't have to make every single one be the right decision necessarily.
Yeah. Again, it comes down to the mistakes you're not allowed to make, right? And some of this stuff just ends up being vibes at the end of the day, and you kind of get an idea for what you're doing. Like a lot of this it's going to be overwhelming if you have to think about it on every turn. So it's going to be a matter of just getting used to the kinds of things that you need to worry about. And then the stuff that you kind of know, you'll get used to that, and then you'll be able to think a little bit further down. But don't stress it too much. Just like try to make the best decision in the moment, and just try. The main thing is just try to have a goal, right? You may pick the wrong one, but as long as whatever decisions you're making are in service of whatever goal you've decided early on, kind of think of it like Battlegrounds, like you're picking a comp. And at a certain point, like you're going to get direction, and then the rest of your plays are going to take you that way. Kind of think of it that way, like get direction for a win con, and then just make sure that the decisions you're making are towards that direction, and you'll probably do better than others. It's when you're just kind of picking randomly and hoping that it's going to work out, that this deck is going to fall short for you.
Some plan is better than no plan, and then you can go from there. Looking at matchups, I'm just looking here at Legend HS Replay. You should. So we're actually just about even with Shaman, slight edge over the Shaman, actually. About even versus Protoss Mage. Dragon Warrior is a mildly unfavorable matchup. Quest Warrior is unfavorable. We're favored into Bonsomdi Death Knight, quite favored into Peddler Demon Hunter, a little bit unfavored into Aggro Demon Hunter. Very favored into Protoss Priest. If you hate Protoss Priests, you can kill them this way. Protoss Rogue is a slightly bad matchup. Strict aggro like Elemental Mage is slightly bad matchup, but overall we have a pretty good matchup spread, and most importantly, unlike basically everything else, you do not necessarily lose to Shaman. So Shaman has such a green matchup spread. If you just want to counter the Shaman, though, Cliff Dive Demon Hunter. Just check that out.
Classic.
So.
Well, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at concede.com, and you also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at CoinConcede. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@CoinConcede. And if you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at coin-concede-shop.fourthwall.com. Yes, that is a mouthful, but
until I fix the website this weekend. God willing.
Yes. So if you're listening to this next week, shop.coinconcede.com should now point to the correct place, but the correct place is called Fourth Wall. Yeah. And sorry, folks, in terms of like notes for this week, usually I do like super detailed Decksplanations notes. That's not where my brain was at today. All writing ability was channeled into report writing. So, but I did link 7 Discover Hunter games to go watch instead.
Indeed. Yeah. The new shop deal is, we're hoping that they'll be better about shipping, although I understand with, tariffs and everything, like everyone's maybe having trouble, but I've heard good things about Fourth Wall. And it was a really easy to use shop. Still always takes a while to do these things, but let's face it, I was procrastinating. But there's a bunch of stuff up now. We'll be adding some more things. I think I didn't get around to like pillows and canvas stuff yet, but there's they call it a tumbler. It's like it's a steel water bottle, I guess, I don't know if exactly thermos. Comes with a metal straw. There's some hats, which is new. We got stickers, mugs, shirts. Shirts look nice. So go ahead and check it out. And if you are one of the patrons who was part of, or producers really, who was part of the sort of legacy program where you would get a merch thing, once per quarter, that we've since determined sort of unsustainable. I'm still gonna do those last ones from this year. So if you want to get those orders in, just message me on Discord and we'll work it out.
Well, thank you to Jan for the sub during the show. And Coin Concedes, as you know, so we'll be off for Thanksgiving next week, and it is very corny to do the I'm grateful for ahead of Thanksgiving. But that is the meaning of Thanksgiving, I think, that I can get behind. That's not horrible when you learn more about it in detail.
Just learning in general is bad, and just don't do it.
My entire profession is just here to ruin things for you. Yeah, I actually read a short story that was about a history teacher, and just like how aware she was of the fact that she's like teaching kids about all of the terrible things that have happened in the world. But anyway, that's how I felt when I had a student. I have a student who's taking like earth science, as you know, she's learning about like she doesn't really know very much about hurricanes. Okay, great, we get to learn about hurricanes. At least that's the thing that we don't have really in California, so she can feel safe from it. Okay, now we're going to learn about earthquakes. Well, that is a thing we do have in California. Anyway, I will, but in terms of grateful for, I am very grateful for all of you listeners and community members, viewers. You know, you're what allow, and patrons, you're what allow us to make the show. We really enjoy making the show, and it's always really fun to hear from you and just see that we are not just putting this out into the void. And the community around Concede is why I got into Concede in the first place, and why I'm here. Also, thank you to Edel and Wicked for being excellent co-hosts and excellent friends, and you are also a big part of the reason why I stay here.
Yeah. I will echo those things, because there are very few people that I would continue to talk into anything that looks like Zoomer Teams after I am done working for the day, given how things have gone lately, and how much I'm doing that during the workday, and that I am willing to do that and enjoy doing that with the two of you is says something, because anyone else I would not want to be staring into a camera anymore after being done with the day at work that I have. So
I said so much earlier, I forgot that there was more to say. I would like to preemptively thank Blizzard for the expansion swag stuff, because I got the email that it's coming tomorrow, but we're not meeting next week. So
yes. I'm sure it is very cool. When you have heard this,
I'm sure it is.
When you will hear this on the podcast, we will have gotten it, and I am sure that it is very cool, and we are very excited about all of the things in there and how we can display them on our person or behind our desks or whatever it happens to be. I'm also going to concede to Man at Arms, because he was in, I don't know if he's still in chat, but he was in chat earlier. And I know Hearthstone is not really his thing very much, but he still came out to hang out with us, and he is a good friend, and I am happy that I am thankful for him as well, and I'm glad that he came out to hang out, even for a little while.
Yeah, to say that Princess Bride is a perfect movie, and
and I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. I'm just, my expectations were set way too high. That's all. There's no movie that could have lived up to the expectations that I had set for myself, is what I'm saying. I was doomed to failure. But anyway, that's going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and discover a WinCon. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede.
Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend.
You win this time.
I choose death.